He turned off the TV and looked at me like I was a stranger in my own home. The room went quiet, except for the soft hum of the ceiling fan. Then he said it, two words that stayed with me longer than any scream ever could. "Get out." I didn't cry. I didn't ask why. I didn't even move at first. I just sat there on the edge of the couch, my hands folded in my lap, staring at the dark screen where a moment ago people were laughing, living lives that felt so far away from mine. I had learned over the years that reacting only made things worse. Silence had become my shield, so I stayed quiet. He stood up, grabbed his keys, and walked past me as if I wasn't there. The door slammed behind him, and the house fell into a kind of emptiness that felt heavier than noise. That night, I slept on the couch. Not because I was told to, but because it felt safer. The walls felt closer than usual, like they were listening. I kept replaying his words in my head, wondering when I had stopped being his wife and started becoming a burden. The next morning, I woke up early. I cleaned the kitchen. I folded the laundry. I made his favorite breakfast, even though I wasn't sure he would eat it. Habit can be a powerful thing. Sometimes it keeps you going when love is gone. He didn't come home that morning, or that afternoon. Instead, the doorbell rang the next day. I wasn't expecting anyone. My heart started beating faster, the way it does when something feels wrong but you can't explain why. When I opened the door, a man I had never seen before was standing there. He looked polite, calm, almost uncomfortable. He held a folder in his hand, and his eyes avoided mine for just a second too long. That was the moment I knew. Whatever my husband had planned, whatever he thought I didn't deserve to know, was no longer hidden. I stood there barefoot, holding the door open, realizing that the words "get out" were never just about that night. They were about everything that was coming next. And as the man began to speak, I understood something clearly for the first time in years. Staying quiet had protected me once. But now, silence was no longer an option. Before that night, before he turned off the TV and told me to get out, my life felt simple in a quiet way. Not perfect, just familiar. I had learned to live inside routines. Morning tea, afternoon silence, evening news playing softly in the background. I did not ask much from life anymore. I only wanted peace. I had been married to him for 27 years. That number still surprises me when I say it out loud. 27 years of shared meals, shared worries, shared bills, and shared silence. We were not one of those loud couples. We did not argue much. We also did not laugh much. We existed side by side like two people who learned how not to disturb each other. People used to say we look stable, strong, like a couple that would last forever. They did not see what stability really meant in our house. It meant staying quiet. It meant not asking questions. It meant learning which words to swallow before they caused discomfort. I learned those lessons early. In the beginning, he was different. He spoke kindly. He listened. He opened doors for me and asked about my day. When our children were small, he would carry them on his shoulders. I held on to those memories for a long time, maybe too long. As the years passed, his voice changed, not louder, just colder. He started deciding things without asking me. What channel to watch, what food to eat, when guests should leave, small things at first. Things I told myself were not worth fighting over. I told myself marriage was about compromise, but compromise slowly turned into disappearance. I became careful with my words. I stopped sharing my thoughts. I stopped talking about my feelings. I learned how to smile without meaning it. I learned how to nod even when my heart said no. The TV became his world. News, sports, loud voices arguing about things that had nothing to do with us. He listened to strangers more than he listened to me. I would sit beside him on the couch, feeling like an extra piece of furniture. Still, I stayed. I stayed because of habit, because of fear. Because of the belief that leaving would be worse than enduring. I stayed because I did not know who I would be without him. Our children had grown and moved on with their lives. They had their own worries, their own families. I did not want to burden them with my unhappiness. I told them everything was fine. Mothers learn how to lie gently. The house felt bigger after they left, louder in its silence. Every sound echoed. The clock, the fridge, my own footsteps. Sometimes I would sit at the kitchen table late at night, staring at my hands. I would wonder when they stopped feeling like mine. I had spent my life cooking, cleaning, caring, but I forgot to care for myself. He never asked if I was happy. Maybe he assumed silence meant contentment, or maybe he simply did not care. That night started like any other. We were sitting in the living room. The TV was on. Some show I was not really watching. I had asked him earlier if he wanted dinner. He nodded without looking at me. I brought him his plate. He did not say thank you. I sat down next to him, holding my tea. My body felt tired. My heart felt heavy. I wanted to say something. I wanted to talk about nothing important, about anything, so I spoke. I said, "Do you ever feel like we don't talk anymore?" He did not respond right away. He kept his eyes on the screen. I waited. Finally, he sighed. That long, annoyed sigh I knew too well. "You always start these things at night," he said. I swallowed. "I just wanted to talk," I replied quietly. He grabbed the remote and turned off the TV. The room fell into silence so thick it made my ears ring. He turned toward me, his face blank, no anger, no warmth. That's when he said it. "Get out." 2 words, flat, final. At first, I thought I heard him wrong. "What?" I asked. "I said get out," he repeated. "I need peace." My heart started beating fast, but my face stayed calm. Years of practice helped with that. "Where should I go?" I asked. He shrugged. "Not my problem." I did not cry, I did not argue, I did not raise my voice. Something inside me went still, very still. I stood up slowly. My legs felt weak. I walked toward the bedroom, unsure of what I was even doing. Packing felt unreal, like I was watching someone else's life. I put a few clothes in a bag. I did not take much. I did not know if I was leaving for a night or forever. He did not follow me, he did not stop me. When I reached the door, I paused. I waited for him to say something, anything. He didn't. I stepped outside into the cool night air. The door closed behind me with a soft click, not a slam, just a quiet ending. I stood there for a moment, holding my bag, listening to the sound of the door I once called home. I did not know where I was going, I only knew I could not stay. That night, I slept on my sister's couch. She did not ask questions. She wrapped a blanket around me and made tea. That kindness almost broke me. The next morning, I woke up early. The sun was just rising. My phone buzzed, a message, not from him, from someone else, a man I had not seen in years. And that was the moment everything truly began to change. The night he told me to get out, I did not cry. I did not shout. I did not even ask why. I just sat there on the edge of the couch, staring at the dark screen of the television he had just turned off. The room felt colder after that, not because the heater stopped working, but because something inside me did. He stood up slowly, like he had already practiced those words in his head many times. "Get out," he said again, softer this time. I nodded, not because I agreed, but because my body didn't know what else to do. I went into the bedroom and sat on the bed. I didn't pack my bags. I didn't touch my clothes. I just sat there and listened to the sounds of the house. His footsteps. A door closing, the faucet running. Normal sounds, everyday sounds. Sounds that felt strange now, like they belonged to someone else's life. That night I slept on the very edge of the bed, my back turned to him, my eyes open for hours, my heart beating too loudly in the quiet. In the morning, he acted like nothing had happened. He poured himself coffee. He read the news on his phone. He didn't look at me. I wanted to ask, "Did you mean it?" But the words stayed stuck in my throat. Silence became our language after that. Days passed like this. Quiet mornings, long afternoons, even quieter nights. We spoke only when we had to, about bills, about groceries, about nothing important. But inside me something was growing, not anger, not yet. It was confusion mixed with fear. I felt like I was slowly disappearing inside my own home. I started paying attention to small things. How he locked his phone now. How he stepped outside to take calls. How he avoided my eyes when I asked simple questions. One evening I asked, "Are you okay?" He didn't answer right away. He just shrugged and said, "I'm tired." That word stayed with me. Tired. I wondered if I was the reason. I wondered if I had failed somehow. As a wife, as a woman, as someone worth staying with, I replayed years of memories in my head. Our early days, the way he used to laugh. The way he once held my hand like he was afraid to let go. Where did that man go? At night, I would lie awake and listen to him breathe. Sometimes I reached out, then pulled my hand back before touching him. I didn't know if I was still allowed to. The house felt heavy, like it was holding secrets in its walls. One afternoon, I found a receipt in the trash. A restaurant we never went to, 2 meals, a dessert we both used to love. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't confront him. I folded it neatly and put it back where I found it. Because part of me was still hoping I was wrong. The next day, I cleaned the house more than usual. I washed curtains. I wiped shelves that were already clean. Keeping my hands busy helped quiet my thoughts. That's when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door slowly. There stood a man I had never seen before. He looked around my age, well-dressed, calm, almost uncomfortable. "Are you Mrs.?" he asked gently. I nodded. "My name is Daniel," he said. "I think we need to talk." My heart dropped into my stomach. I invited him in without thinking. He sat on the chair near the window. He didn't rush. He didn't look nervous, but there was something serious in his eyes. "I don't want to cause trouble," he said, "but I believe you deserve to know the truth." The truth. That word felt heavy. He told me he was a lawyer, not my husband's lawyer, someone else's. He explained slowly, carefully, like he was handling something fragile. There was paperwork, there was a plan. There were documents with my name on them. My husband had been making arrangements. Quiet ones, legal ones, selling things, moving things, preparing for a future that did not include me. And the night he told me to get out, that wasn't anger, that was preparation. I felt dizzy. I held onto the edge of the table to steady myself. Daniel watched me closely. "Are you okay?" he asked. I nodded again. I kept nodding, even though my world was cracking open. I didn't cry, not then. After he left, I sat alone in the living room, the same couch, the same dark television screen, but now I understood something. The silence wasn't empty, it was planned. That night when my husband came home, I looked at him differently. He noticed. "What?" he asked. "Nothing," I said, but inside me something had changed. Fear was still there, but now it was mixed with clarity, and clarity is powerful. I realized that staying quiet did mean I was weak. It meant I was listening, and I had learned enough. The night he told me to get out, I did not sleep. I lay on the couch with my coat still on, staring at the ceiling fan as it moved slowly above me. Each turn felt heavy, like time itself was tired. My ears were still ringing with his words. "Get out." Not shouted, not whispered, just said. Flat. Final. I replayed the moment again and again. He had turned off the television so calmly. No argument, no warning. He stood there like a stranger wearing the face of someone I once loved. I stayed quiet, not because I agreed, not because I was weak, but because something inside me said, wait. Sometimes silence is not surrender. Sometimes it is preparation. I folded my hands on my lap and listened to the house breathe, the ticking clock, the distant traffic, the hum of the fridge. This house had heard laughter once. Birthdays, late-night talks, promises spoken without fear. Now it heard only stillness. In the morning, I woke up before the sun. I made coffee out of habit, then realized no one would drink it with me. I poured it anyway. My hands were steady, that surprised me. He walked past me like I wasn't there. No apology, no eye contact, no explanation. I thought maybe he would soften, maybe he would say he didn't mean it, but he didn't. He grabbed his keys and left. That was when I noticed something new. Fear had left me. In its place was clarity. I spent the day cleaning. Not because the house was dirty, but because movement helped me think. I wiped the counters slowly. I folded clothes carefully. Each small task reminded me I still existed. In the afternoon, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, there stood a man I had not seen in years. Tall, older, wearing a coat that had seen many winters. His eyes met mine with recognition, then concern. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. I hadn't told anyone what happened. But somehow, he knew something was wrong. He stepped inside, and the house felt different instantly, like it had been waiting for a witness, for truth to be spoken out loud. We sat at the table where so many meals had gone cold. I wrapped my hands around my mug even though it was empty. "He told me to leave," I said finally. The words didn't shake. The man didn't react with shock. He nodded slowly, like someone who had suspected this moment would come. "I was hoping I was wrong," he said. That sentence changed everything. I looked at him. "What do you mean?" He took a breath, a long one, like he had been carrying this truth for a long time. "There are things you don't know," he said. My heart did not race, it sank, because deep down I already knew there were missing pieces. He told me about conversations I was never part of, about decisions made behind my back, about plans discussed when I was not in the room. I listened. Quiet. Still. Each word felt like a door closing somewhere inside me. By the time he finished, I realized something painful and freeing at the same time. The man who told me to get out had already left long before he said the words. I wasn't being pushed out of a home. I was being released from a lie. When he came back that evening, the house felt smaller. He looked surprised to see someone else there. "Who's this?" he asked sharply. The man stood up calmly. "A witness," he said. They spoke. Quietly, tightly. I did not interrupt. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Not fear of losing me, fear of being seen. That was the moment something in me broke open. Not with anger, with understanding. I was never meant to stay small so someone else could feel large. When the man left, I stood up. "I will go," I said, "but not because you told me to." He looked confused. "I'm leaving because I choose peace," I continued, "and because I finally see who you are." He did not argue. That silence told me everything. I packed only what I needed. Not clothes, not objects, I packed dignity. As I stepped out of the door, I didn't look back. Some endings do not need closure. They need courage. I did not sleep much that night. The house felt different after he told me to get out. Not loud, not angry, just cold. I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, listening to the slow ticking of the clock. Every tick felt like a reminder that something in my life had cracked. I kept replaying his words in my mind. Get out. So simple, so final. I asked myself how a home could turn into a place where you no longer belong. I wondered when I had stopped being a wife and started becoming a problem. I wondered how silence could hurt more than shouting. In the early hours of the morning, I heard him turn in his sleep. I stayed still. I did not want him to know I was awake. I did not want another conversation. Some words cannot be taken back once they're spoken. When the sun finally came up, it did not feel warm. It felt like a witness, watching, waiting. I stood up quietly and went to the kitchen. I made coffee the way I always did. Same mug, same spoon, same routine, but everything felt unfamiliar. He came in later, already dressed. He did not look at me. He did not say good morning. He just picked up his keys and left. That silence stayed with me all day. I tried to keep myself busy. I folded clothes that did not need folding. I wiped counters that were already clean. I stood by the window longer than I needed to. Around noon, the doorbell rang. At first, I thought I imagined it. We rarely had visitors, and certainly not unexpected ones. I opened the door slowly. There was a man standing there, middle-aged, neatly dressed. Calm eyes, he asked my name. When I said yes, his expression softened, not with pity, with respect. I'm sorry to disturb you, he said gently. I think we need to talk. My heart started beating faster. Not from fear, from instinct. I invited him in. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, the same table where I had shared meals, birthdays, and quiet mornings. Now it felt like a place for truth. He placed a folder on the table but did not open it yet. He looked at me carefully, as if measuring how much I could take. I don't want to alarm you, he said. But I believe you deserve to know what's happening. That sentence stayed with me, because for a long time, no one had spoken to me like I deserved to know anything. He explained who he was, why he was there, what he had discovered. With every word, my chest tightened. Not from shock, from clarity. Things started making sense. The distance, the coldness, the sudden control, the way he looked at me like I was in the way. This man was not here by accident. He was here because something had been hidden. Something that involved my home, my name, my life. I felt the urge to interrupt him, to say something, to stop the words from continuing. But I didn't. I stayed quiet. I had learned that silence can be a shield when truth is arriving. As he spoke, I realized something important. I was not weak. I had been kept uninformed. There is a difference. He finally opened the folder and slid one paper toward me. I did not touch it right away. I needed a moment to breathe. When I looked at the paper, my hands trembled, not because I was scared, but because I finally understood. The man watched me carefully. He did not rush me. He did not push. You're not alone, he said softly, and you still have choices. That sentence changed something inside me, because for weeks, maybe months, I had felt like I had none. After he left, I sat there for a long time, the paper still in front of me, the house still quiet, but something had shifted. I was no longer confused. I was no longer begging for answers. I had them. When my husband came home that evening, he noticed it immediately. Not because I said anything, but because I did not move out of his way. I did not ask him how his day was. I did not explain my silence. I just looked at him. And for the first time in a long time, he looked uncertain. Not angry, not loud, uncertain. That night, as I lay back on the couch, I realized something important. The next steps would not be loud or dramatic. They would be quiet, careful, strong, because sometimes the most powerful moment in a story is not when someone shouts. It is when they finally stop shrinking. The day after he told me to get out, the house felt different. Not louder, not quieter either, just empty in a way I had never felt before. I woke up early, even though I had nowhere to go. My body moved on habit like it had done for decades. I made tea. I stood by the sink. I watched the steam rise, then disappear. That was how everything felt, like it appeared for a moment, then vanished. I thought about his words again. Get out. He didn't shout. He didn't explain. He just said it like he was asking me to move a chair. And the silence after that sentence hurt more than the words themselves. I kept asking myself the same question. How did we get here? How did a life built together turn into a sentence that pushed me out? I sat on the edge of the bed and looked around the room. My room. Or at least the room I thought was mine. The dresser, the mirror, the small crack on the wall that had been there for years. I realized something painful. I had been living in this house for a long time, but I had stopped belonging to it a long time ago. The knock on the door the next day replayed in my mind again and again. The man who showed up, the way my husband froze, the way his face changed. That moment had cracked something open, not just in him, in me too. After that man left, nothing was said. He didn't apologize, he didn't explain. He avoided my eyes like a child caught doing something wrong, and for the first time I saw him clearly. Not as my husband, not as the man I defended for years, but as someone who had been hiding behind my silence. That night I slept on the couch, not because he told me to, but because I chose distance. Distance felt safer than confusion. Lying there in the dark, I thought about all the times I stayed quiet. All the times I swallowed my feelings to keep peace. All the times I told myself, this is just how marriage is. I wondered when love turned into endurance. The next few days were heavy. We moved around each other like strangers. No fighting, no talking, just shared air and separate lives. I noticed things I had ignored before. How he no longer asked about my day, how decisions were made without me, how my presence had become optional. That realization hurt deeply, but it also brought clarity. I began packing small things, not in anger, not in panic, slowly, carefully. Each item carried a memory, a scarf from a trip, a book with notes in the margins, a photo I once loved too much to look at now. Packing was not about leaving, it was about reclaiming myself. One afternoon, he finally spoke, not to explain, not to apologize. He said, "You're making this harder than it needs to be." I looked at him calmly, and for the first time, I didn't argue. I realized something important in that moment. People who benefit from your silence always feel uncomfortable when you find your voice. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I simply said, "I've been making things easier for everyone but myself for years." He had no answer. That silence felt different. It felt like truth settling into the room. That night I cried, not loudly, not dramatically, quiet tears. The kind that come when your heart finally understands what your mind avoided. I wasn't crying because I was being pushed out. I was crying because I finally saw how long I had been shrinking to stay. The man who showed up that day had opened a door. Not intentionally, but truth doesn't ask permission. I began thinking about my future, not in fear, but in small, realistic steps. Where would I go? Who would I become without constantly trying to be enough for someone else? The idea scared me, but it also felt light. For the first time in years, my life felt like it could be mine again. I stopped waiting for him to change. I stopped hoping for explanations that would never come. Acceptance didn't arrive all at once. It came in pieces, in the calm mornings, in the quiet packing, in the steady breathing that returned to my chest. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger needs energy, and I was saving mine. What replaced it was something quieter, something stronger, clarity. I understood that love without respect becomes survival, and survival is not a marriage. As I folded the last sweater, I whispered to myself, "You didn't fail." Sometimes, leaving is not giving up. Sometimes, it is choosing to live. The next morning came quietly. No loud sounds, no arguments, just the soft light slipping through the curtains and touching the walls of the room I had slept in for years. I woke up before the alarm. My body felt tired, but my mind was clear in a way it hadn't been for a long time. For the first time since he told me to get out, I did not feel afraid of the day ahead. Something had changed inside me during the night. I sat on the edge of the bed and listened to the house. The floor did not creak. The television stayed off. The silence felt different now. It wasn't heavy anymore. It felt honest. I walked into the kitchen slowly. The chair where I used to sit every morning was still there. The table still had the same small marks from years of family meals, but I realized something important. This house was full of memories, but it no longer held my peace. I poured myself a cup of tea and stood by the window. Outside, the day was moving forward like it always does. People walking, cars passing. Life continuing without waiting for anyone to catch up. That was when I understood. I had been waiting too long for someone else to choose me. Later that morning, he walked into the kitchen. He looked tired, older somehow. Not strong like he used to pretend to be. He didn't say much, just nodded. I nodded back. There was no anger left in me, only clarity. I said calmly, "I'll be leaving today." He looked surprised, not because he cared, but because he thought I would beg, because he thought I had nowhere else to go. He asked, "Where?" I smiled gently. "I don't know yet, but somewhere peaceful." That was the truth. I packed slowly, not in a rush, not in tears. Each item I folded felt like I was closing a chapter, not losing one. I didn't take everything, only what mattered. Clothes that felt like me. Photos that held warmth, not pain. Small things that reminded me who I was before I learned to stay quiet. Before I left, I walked through the house one last time. The living room, the hallway, the door he told me to walk through. I placed my hand on the wall and whispered goodbye. Not to him, to the version of myself that stayed too long. Outside, the air felt lighter. I took a deep breath. For the first time in years, my chest didn't feel tight. I stayed with a friend for a while, someone who didn't ask too many questions, someone who understood that silence can be healing. Days passed, then weeks. The man who showed up the next day, the one who told the truth, never contacted me again. He didn't need to. His presence had already done what it was meant to do. I learned something important during that time. Truth does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it comes quietly, knocks once, and leaves you changed forever. I started rebuilding my life in small ways: morning walks, evening tea, long moments of doing nothing at all. And slowly I felt myself return. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. I was free. One afternoon, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I looked older, but stronger. My eyes didn't look tired anymore. I smiled at myself, not because everything was perfect, but because I finally chose myself. I don't know where he is now, and honestly, I don't need to know. Some endings don't need answers. They just need courage. If you're listening to this and you feel invisible, if someone told you to leave and expected you to disappear, please remember this. Sometimes leaving is not losing. Sometimes it's the first time you truly arrive. And that day, I arrived back to myself.